there. So yeah, at the most recent Digiday event that I attended back in October, which was at another fantastic place in Key Biscayne. So I love the way these guys do their events. We were having a good discussion on the future of the agency model, and at the end I dropped this thing that was, we are an agency. If you know about us, you know that we've got very strong opinions as an agency about user-centric design and also a very strong history in product design, development, and innovation for a lot of different categories, including a lot of retail work. But at the end, they asked, how do you keep current? How do you stay fresh? And this is where I dropped this idea that, well, you know, we just opened a coffee shop in Atlanta as a standalone business and a consumer-facing brand, but also as a retail test bed for us to control a footprint and operate independently. And the reaction that I got was kind of like, you did what? Yeah. And that's the same reaction that we got every time we asked if we could do this, every time we told people we wanted to. You're doing what? You want to start a coffee shop, but you're a digital agency that does digital work and product design. Why do you want to start something that is you know, a business that's completely out of your realm? And the good folks at Digiday asked us to come and to spend some time with you all here at this amazing location and share some about that. But just to back up, Derek and I are both with Huge. And again, if you know us as a digital agency. But what we're going to talk to you about today is why we got into the coffee business. And the place to start, before we talk about what we're doing there, we really want to share a little bit about the why we're doing it. And the why goes to every day, all of our clients are asking us to help them, not just with what they've got to figure out and get done now. All the conversations yesterday, particularly the one around Macy's, was a lot about, God, there's so much stuff that we've got to get done today and stay on top of the business today, but also at the same time, how do you think about what's next and how do you prepare for what's next? And we made a very important strategic decision that as an agency that partners with our clients and helps them with the ideas around innovation, we've got to be mutually invested in retail innovation. We can't just wait for a brief that says, help us figure out what's next, or what would you do with this, or what would you do with this? We need to start figuring out before, and a little bit on our dime, what the future looks like so that when we do get those questions, it's like, you know, we've been thinking about it. We've been working towards this on our own. We've been investing in it in interesting ways. And a proof point of that is we took our own cash, we found our own space, and we opened up a business. But the key things that we wanted to do when we were setting up this strategy was to make sure that we control the footprint, that we would have full control over a retail footprint, that we operated 100%, that we could pick our own commercial offer, because we love coffee, but it doesn't matter if it's coffee. It could be a bookstore, well, not a bookstore, we wouldn't do a bookstore, but it could be coffee, or it could be an art gallery or a boutique, or I'm really intrigued by this athleisure industry now, where we could have real consumer engagement, because we don't want to just open up a lab and do everything in a purely sterile environment. We got to touch real customers. We have to have them touch our products, touch our services, a place where we could control all the data, and that we could have full coverage over digital and physical.
Yeah, so our office in Atlanta is on the 4th floor of this building here, which is on Peachtree Street. You know Atlanta, there's about 100 Peachtree Streets. We're on it. Our first level of the office that we're in had a coffee shop in it when we first moved in. It was actually a pretty terrible coffee shop. It was kind of small and dark, and we always sort of wished that, hey, we could take over the space at some point. And for us, we have a garage space where we're building, iterating. We do a lot of digital and physical work where we're doing things inside of retail environments. The garage was great, but it didn't give us the ability to actually bring people in and test stuff in real time. So coincidentally, as we start to brainstorm and think about taking over the coffee shop space, the lease becomes available. So we immediately jump on it and take over the space and design out this coffee shop. And the coffee shop kind of reflects and showcases the Huge brand, but it's also a canvas for us to do things in real time. So for me, in a previous life, previous agencies, we always build things called labs. And labs are the rooms that you bring clients through and you show them some technology and you talk about how innovative and cool you are, and then you just kind of, you know, move on from there. For us, it was one step further. We could certainly have a lab with cool toys and latest technology in it, but for us, we wanted to really, really design like ideas and concepts and test them in a real place. So for us, the coffee shop's a blank slate. It's an operating coffee shop. We make amazing coffee. We serve really, really good food. We've partnered with an Atlanta chef and an operating partner. We serve everything from bagels to steam buns in the afternoon. So
we have the best bagel unlocks in Atlanta.
Yes,
so
we
absolutely
do.
the best bagel unlocks.
So the food is great. We couldn't do anything like Seattle's Best or Starbucks or anything like that. We've got beans that are roasted in Atlanta, sourced in Atlanta, and then a great food product. So that was kind of the baseline. Now we leverage and layer technology on top of it, and we can start to glean and learn things. And the most important thing for me and the design crew in Atlanta is that when we sit down with a client, be it Lowe's or a retailer, a restaurant, and people that we sit with, now we can have a conversation about what might work in retail and concepts and ideas that have actually been vetted. So I could sit and speculate all day. I could show you pretty pictures in PowerPoint, but now we actually can start to test things downstairs in a white label fashion so that we can start to get some really good ideas going. So we've really gone ahead of just having that room full of toys and hardware that just collects dust over time. The experience for the cafes, interesting. What we did was we focused on our initial application being all about ordering ahead. So anybody upstairs on the 4th floor, anytime they want a coffee, can place an order. Michael's lunch item, he sits there on his phone, uses the app, places the order, gets beamed downstairs. But the interesting thing that we've done is rather than the order just showing up at our point of sale, Nami, our store manager, actually on her Apple Watch, receives a vibration, sees Michael's face, and sees his bento box order for the afternoon. What we've done there is Nami's able to walk around, use the espresso machine, help people out with their orders, and then passively behind the scenes get taps and notifications of incoming customers. So she's able to just glance at the watch, see the order, go ahead and take care of it.
What that accomplishes for us is it makes the digital order as personal, or almost as personal as somebody that's walking up to the counter, rather than this be the little kiosk behind the counter where all the order ahead or all the digital orders come in, and it's got its own separate workflow and it doesn't work with the whole restaurant.
Yeah, so from there, from a customer service standpoint, Nami knows who's coming. She can anticipate people that are going to be walking through the door, address you by name. She's learned the name of the 100 and some odd folks that we have upstairs in using this app and coming downstairs really, really quick. And can also start to look ahead and say, okay, I've got 20 orders coming into the queue. Let me go ahead and prepare behind the scenes for that to start happening. We also have a few other things going on. There's the application that our employees are testing around ordering ahead. There's the Apple Watch application, then we have a manager application, which is essentially an iPad that we call air traffic control. So it shows not only the inbound orders, but it gives you data, history, and analytics and reporting around the behaviors of people that are using the mobile app. The next step of it is to start to leverage proximity. So on my drive in the morning, send me a notification. I never even have to open the app. I can just say, yeah, I have the usual ready for me when I get there, and when I arrive, it's ready. So irrespective of just coffee, all of these ideas and concepts we're testing relate to different levels and different categories within retail, whether it's hospitality, restaurant, and food, or things like sportswear and tools and hardware as well. So here's some variables, things that this is kind of nerdy stuff that we're getting into, things like understanding things like prep time, whether we're busy or slow, the quantity that you're ordering, drink keep time. So if Michael orders an ice drink and I order a hot drink, Michael's drink's not going to sit on the counter at the same time that mine is, or for the same length of time, right? So those are all variables that come into play that make something that seems very simple actually pretty complicated, and we're learning a lot from. And then we have the different sort of interfaces that we've designed, the consumer app, the watch experience, and then there's Nami with the application that shows up on our wrist. So there's a lot that we're learning. We're doing some different things. You want to talk about the huddles that we're setting up?
Yeah, we want to make sure that, like when I talked about controlling a footprint, it's more than just having the place where we can create the offer and just sell things. We're really need to be in touch with the consumers and understanding what are people doing, what are they thinking. So we turn this place also into, it's a working coffee shop, it's a working and profitable coffee shop, and a place where we can also do active focus groups. We've got sections of the coffee shop that are reserved for what we're calling huddles, where we recruit different groups, either around a thought leadership topic, or we want to do some quick and dirty research around consumers, testing out an application, get their thoughts on it while they're in the environment. Or we've even been expanding it beyond just the direct cafe and retail experience into just getting groups of people together so that we can have interesting discussions around interesting topics and have our folks learn and glean insights from those conversations that we apply to the broader work that we do.
Yeah, so we've been operating for about solid 3 months now and kind of gathering and learning about what the locals are doing at the shop, and then also how our people are breaking the app every day and kind of figuring out hacks and ways to get around some of the things that we put in place, which have been interesting. One of the early things that we learned was, Nami coming upstairs and saying, "You got to take this watch off of me. It's driving me nuts," because it's sort of like beeping nonstop. So then we had to create a bit of a queuing system. So you've got an employee with a wearable on their wrist, and we're pinging them every couple of minutes with a new order. Could we actually start to stack them? So one vibration doesn't equal one order, but one vibration is actually a cluster of orders that have been kind of held for a certain period of time. So the other interesting thing that we're getting into is just the essentially things like biometrics. So we know when Nami's heart rate is really, really high, and we know when it's really low. So there's just interesting things happening around that. We really think that's a great use case for a wearable. Right now, everyone's worried about what to do with the Apple Watch in a consumer world. We actually think it's more interesting when you take the watch to work and you take it behind the counter and use it in an interesting way.
Well, it's interesting too, seeing the gentleman talk yesterday about Popeyes and the importance of the guest experience and customer service. Right now they're looking at the consumer feedback that's related to the guest experience, but now that you start to have, it's not realistic to buy every employee an Apple Watch, but as we get closer and closer to actual biometric measuring at an affordable rate, you can start to correlate the customer experience with the associate experience. And one of the things, and the Apple Watch is a very good example of this, the discussion that Derek just had about it, is that it's really, really important nowadays because service is more of a mutual proposition than it used to be, that we do the right things, we take the right care with regard to design, usability, and experience and research on both sides of the counter, that we're just as concerned with how do things work for the associates that are responsible for representing the product and serving it, as we are with folks that are just walking in that are going to be the consumers of our products and services. Really making sure, because a happy employee provides great service to a happy customer. A miserable employee that's overworked, stressed, bogged down, has to fumble through a very difficult interface to get their job done, has too much of a burden on them to provide great customer service that you really want to be the hallmark of your brand.
Yeah, we're going to be moving into testing some additional things. So in about 2 weeks, everyone in the office is going to receive a tumbler, a branded huge tumbler that we're NFC tagging. So what we're going to be doing with that is every week, just as a kind of thank you to the employees, we're going to pick 20 employees that essentially have free coffee downstairs, as much as they want within that tumbler. But what they're going to be doing is going downstairs, putting it down on a pedestal that we've designed. It's going to light up green if they're good to go, and then Nami will know to go ahead and take it and refill it for them. The test there is that we get into things like subscription-based food, right? So what can we do to say, hey, here's your tumbler, this is yours, every time you bring it, we'll refill it for you, but we'll do it in a manner where it's almost frictionless. You just come in, set it down, it gets picked up, filled, put on the pickup area, and you can just walk off with it.
So this gives us real data to model what a subscription version of this business looks like. And then as it starts to get into a broader scenario with another client in a different type of retail business, we've got some real learnings. Obviously, in the home improvement business is very different than people walking into the coffee shop to buy a $3 or $4 coffee drink. But at the same time, we've got the platform set, we've got a place to do a test and trial, and then real data that can come about adoption as well as frequency and all the other metrics that we need.
Mm-hmm. So there's the software and the digital component that we're working on, but then things like industrial design. So what are things that we can design to make life a little bit easier? So even down to the charging stations for our watches that are in the coffee shop, designing those and iterating on them and coming up with something that's very kind of functional but beautiful at the same time. So it fits the aesthetic and look and feel of the shop. And this is that air traffic control for our manager to be able to view. So whether the manager's tied up in the back of the house or in the front or even remotely, our manager can view what's happening in real time, what orders are coming in, what those orders are, whether it's coffee, food, or merchandise, and be able to service folks that way too. So that's it. That's the coffee shop.
The key takeaway is labs suck. Or they're limited, and you've got to get your products in the hands of real people and put real revenue on the line to really validate innovation.
Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Thanks, guys. We have a couple minutes for questions. I'm going to start, though, because I'm on stage. How are you? I mean, I know you kind of mentioned Lowe's, but I want to go back to that because I want to talk about how something like this can work for a retail client that big. What are some of the direct things you've actually done with Lowe's that maybe were learnings that came away from here or takeaways that came away from here?
Yeah, I could talk about, so for Lowe's, we launched all the mobile-facing applications, that's iOS, Android, and all that for consumers. but we also design the interface that all the Lowe's associates use. So you'll see an associate with an iOS device. They use an application that we designed that has a lot of parity with what a consumer is using. So if you come in and say, I've got this dishwasher I'm looking for, the associate will be able to, I've got the same photo right here, this is what we're looking for, rather than the green screen, looking up things. Where this gets interesting is you think about like store managers and the idea that you can give them the ability to have eye contact, one-on-one customer service without being glued to a screen down here, and their ability to walk around the store and know really quickly at a glance that there's something that they need to go manage or handle. So the wearable gives us this one level of ability around customer service and then also portability.
Yeah. And I know you've mostly talked about sort of how this, thinking about it the other way, that these apps or these some of these processes can actually work on the employee side. Kind of going back to the consumer for a second, because I think that is the most common use of these, even though this is I think relatively, people don't really think about this as much. Going to the employee, we talked about this in the town hall. It's like you walk in and nobody's actually on your app, whatever your app is. You're not the Target app, the Lowe's app, whatever, when you're actually in the store. How do you,
well, you have
is
to
there
give
anything
reason.
that's designed there?
So just designing an app or just a discrete experience is very limiting, because the experience is only there on the discrete occasion that somebody has it open. As digital becomes more of an important part of the physical retail experience, we have to think broader than just app design. You have to think more about service design, and you have to design your stores, which is why I talked about controlling the footprint and having control over the physical and digital. That you have to explain to people what's the benefit of pulling out the phone and opening the app, or downloading the app, or going to the mobile web while they're in the store, because it pluses the experience. It adds value to the experience. It makes, we have, whether it's Lowe's or any of the other big box retailers, you've got stores with 500,000 SKUs, very complicated purchases. What is better to help you navigate all those aisles and all those products, and a complex shopping experience related to a complex purchase process? And for me, buying an outfit is complex. So the idea of going to Macy's is more intimidating than going to a Lowe's. So if you design the whole experience and design the footprint with digital in mind and mobile in mind, then you give people more of a reason and constant reminders why they should have it out and why they should pull it out, or before they come the next time, my experience would be or might be better if I have this experience loaded onto my device.
That makes sense. Awesome. Any questions from the audience?
Over there.
Who's over there?
Don't ask us about email. We don't do any email.
I'm just curious if you've studied any impact on impulse buy as a result of completely automating the process for the customer.
I think for us, one of the insights, obviously looking at the traffic and what people are ordering, we do see a lot of impulse kind of on certain days of the week, if that makes sense. It's kind of an odd one for us we've been starting to figure out. We know that, for example, Wednesdays are our most popular day. And we can guess that, all right, people are in the office, are working hard Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday, they're like, I got to get out of here, and I'm going to go get a coffee or what have you. But then we also see this variable on Wednesdays where, like, the food, so now it's more coffee food in pairs than it is just straight up coffee. So we see it, but I don't know if we've really figured out why it's happening. We're looking at things like weather and other information to give us some insights, but it's one of these things that we're trying to figure out now. We're 3 months in, we've got some of the data, but we're seeing little spikes like that.
But we do, one of the things that we're doing for Impulse and to test it out or to gain some learnings on it is the menu is not a fixed menu.
Yeah.
We have a fixed type of things, and we have some standards, but we have things that are there based on limited quantity, or we have things that are a special item, so you never know what you're going to get. You may walk in and you know that there's going to be these 4 things that are your standard lunch: a soup, a salad, and some of the different Korean buns that we have being served, as well as that bagel. But one day there might be a soup on there, an Asian-inspired sweet potato soup. And we're able to see when people walk in, are they willing to try one of those things in addition to the regular things that they typically order? So that's one of the parts, is keeping the menu fresh, keeping the selections fresh, keeping the retail items that we have on the shelf a little bit dynamic. Sometimes there'll be a magazine, but we only have 5 issues of the magazine, and see how people will take it, or some tote bags, and see, does that move somebody to buy it in addition to the other things? Because they don't come to our store to buy a magazine, and they don't come to our store to buy a tote bag or a physical product. They come to get their bagel or their sandwich, their cortado, their their mochaccino or whatever they're looking for as far as food and beverage, and how do we move them on those other things. So it gives us a little bit of an in on merchandising and how do we figure out the right way to stage the experience so people will buy a little bit more.
Great. You guys, we're almost out of time, and I know there's more questions back there, but you're going to be around, right?
Yeah, we're here.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
here.
Okay, great. Thank you. This
Cool.
was great.
Thanks very
Thank
much.
you.
Coming up next.